Hello guys, welcome to Lazio Lounge. I hope it works because I'm getting a lot of error message. But well, can be worse than Lazio-Milan, guys. So you saw it yesterday. We are really today. Welcome. I'm Vittorio Campanile. I'm joined by other friends. Macintosh. Hi, Sean. How are you?
I'm good. I'm good. Hopefully, unlike
Yep.
the match, we not only start off well, but we can keep a strong finish. So, looks like we lost both of you here.
No, that's just the editing. Don't worry.
The magical editing. Great, great.
Yeah.
No, happy to be on.
If I can, I'll do it as soon as I can. Hi, Alistair. How are you?
I'm okay, thanks. Yeah, I mean, well, to be honest, I was feeling a bit down last night and today because, yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot to talk about after last night, and none of it's particularly good. So I guess that has brought my mood down a little bit, but with you guys, so we can have our kind of group therapy session, which always helps.
Yeah, where do we start? From Lazio wasting another golden opportunity with Roma and Fiorentina losing, or from the end, another Lazio conceding a goal in the injury time? This is the fifth time this season so far that happened, and we lost four matches like that. Only against Sassuolo, when they scored at the 94th minute, we managed to win the match. So what's going on, Alistair? I want to start with you. A couple of years ago, it was Lazio finding a way to score in extra time injury minutes and win the matches. Now it's the other way around. What's happening?
Well, we sold Caicedo. I think that was the main problem. This used to be our time, and since Caicedo's gone, it's flipped the other way. But yeah, it's frustrating. I mean, obviously, it's always frustrating to lose a game in the stoppage time. But I mean, at least it wasn't against the run of play. We have to admit that Milan were the better team last night for the vast majority of that game. It wasn't a massive surprise that they won the game on the balance of play. Then again, I think the big painful thing here isn't actually the lateness of the goal, but the manner of the goal. Because to concede it through Marusic pointlessly losing the ball, in his own defensive third, and then Acerbi failing to clear his lines or do better with it when he's trying to get rid of it, and it's kind of two individual errors that lead to that goal, and having made it that far without, well, I guess like managing to restrict the quality of Milan's chances. They created a lot in that game, but the actual quality of their chances wasn't great until that moment. So it does feel a little bit like it was handed to them, and for me, that's as frustrating, if not more, than how late it came.
Sean, do you agree with Alistair?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's so many things to point to that bring about frustration. Let's talk about the moment of positivity, the brilliant goal, from an excellent pass by Milinkovic-Savic, who needed to have a big game, particularly against Milan and Kessie, but for Cheeto to find the space in between two defenders to tap that in off of a bounce was what he does really, really well. And so for us to start so quickly and to play a little bit on the front foot, only to immediately decide that we were going to defend for 75, 80 minutes from that point forward was always going to spell doom for us. And I was really concerned about how we changed our mentality with so much time left in the match. I certainly would have hoped that going into halftime would have changed things. I thought, we were lucky to go into half with the lead, and for everything to kind of continue on from that point forward. It was only a matter of time before we knew we were going to concede. And so certainly a series of comedic errors that led to that goal in the 92nd minute. Marusic obviously could have done better. He had plenty of opportunities to either clear it or just at that point get it out of bounds. And from the silly header that wasn't strong enough to even questioning Strakosha's point in that, like, should he have been a little bit more forceful and communicated a little bit better to find that ball before Acerbi even got a chance to head it, to a slight push off from Tonali. I mean, there were so many things that had to happen for that goal to be conceded, and very much so Milan deserved the 3 points. But to get to that point, concede in that way, it was as gut-wrenching of a result as I can remember in quite some time, because of everything that kind of went into it. And obviously we'll get into everything with Acerbi, but so much dismay and discord between our own players. Just it was tough to stomach.
One thing I want to point out is that lately in Serie A and in Coppa Italia against Milan, knowing that the fans wouldn't show up to the stadium, I was expecting another bad defeat for Lazio. Instead, it was surprising to see Lazio starting so well and Milan, like, they didn't show up for the first 10-15 minutes. So that was surprising. And so my biggest disappointment is that we played well, and in the second half, Milan came out, find the equalizer. We have to talk about Luis Alberto, we'll do it later. But in the moment where Lazio seemed to control the match, we conceded the goal. That's the most annoying thing, because I had the impression Milan didn't have any more the energy, and we were finding a way to control them. That's the thing that really drives me crazy, right? You were getting 1 point that didn't change that much the table, but was a helping, definitely more than a defeat. So this is what we had it. We were in control. Do you blame Sarri, or is something that our players are lacking this season so far? Sure, I'll start with you.
There's always multiple people to blame. It's hard to just say it's the manager. It's hard to put it on the players. Ultimately, it's going to be a little bit of both. I think, though, if I'm weighting this responsibility, it's got to be on the players. And for me, I mean, they're the ones on the pitch, and we see this time and time again. We can change managers, but we continue to see the same problems. And it can only be pointed to a mentality of this group. And if we don't change the core group, we're always going to see and expect the same results. And so, I mean, I have to say, while I hoped and prayed that Sarri would do something to change it up, ultimately it's those players that have to go out on the pitch and fight for a result. And that just didn't happen. Outside of a few players, you really didn't see it. So I'll have to go with the players on this one.
Alistair?
Yeah, I mean, we've seen this kind of all season long, the kind of blowing hot and cold thing. You're right about this how well it started, and I think we want to see that on a more consistent basis. But then we've been saying that for a long time now. I do think Lazio, like Sarri has said, have got better over the course of the season. But in these matches, it felt like they kind of completely ran out of gas after 15 minutes. Some people made this argument about there was this outbreak of flu during the week, and I think 7 or 8 players went down with it. Clearly, that's going to have an impact on the condition of those players. But I think it would be too simplistic to blame it on that alone, because we've seen this time and again. And we've also seen a bit of a worrying trend about Lazio's, I guess I would say, kind of self-belief in these big matches now, because that's the Milan game, conceding the last minute, Napoli game, conceding the last minute, Roma game got absolutely thrashed, the Milan game before that, absolutely thrashed. So Lazio aren't really standing up very well in these big matches in the last few months, even if some of their other performances against mid-table teams, lower table teams have been improved. And it's that lack of consistency, I think, that's frustrating people the most. To be honest, I don't know what you guys think, but last night to me was kind of like a microcosm of this entire season, because it's all the same stuff, but it was all happening at once. It's kind of Lazio being hot and cold, Sergei and Ciro doing very well, but the defense costing us with individual errors. We had a terrible attendance, this time for a different reason, which is into another theme, which is fans versus Lotito. And then on top of that, we had all the Acerbi drama, which is another background subplot that's been rolling on all season. So we had all these different factors that have dictated and really determined the narrative around this entire season happening at once. And sadly, most of them are negative, apart from Sergei and Ciro, pretty much.
And there was such a shaky feeling, like again, moments after that goal, and this is why I find it hard to put it on Asadi. It's just individually, it just was shaky from every individual. It never felt like we had any semblance of control. Didn't feel like there was a big tactical change. It just felt like every player, to your point, Alistair, had this weight of just the entire season on them. And they were playing so afraid to make mistakes. I mean, my goodness, our inability to hold on to the ball and string together 2 or 3 passes just completely failed us. It was a complete disaster from the players' front, where nobody looked like they were confident. Even a player like Milinkovic, who had a great pass in that match, like nobody looked like they were confident on the ball at all, and it was shocking.
I think we have to talk about Luis Alberto, because his performance was awful, just like he did against Torino 7 days before. As Hardos is mentioning, we suffer against physical teams, but I think big part of the reason is because Luis Alberto is struggling against big team. It's not a coincidence that against Torino, Luis Alberto comes off, Basic come in, and Lazio find a way to score. I thought yesterday when Luis Alberto came out, Lazio find a way to counterbalance Milan, to find a way to balance the match and find some solution. Is this the end of Luis Alberto? Is he proving to not be able to play against this type of physical team? And modern football is moving to a more type physical team. Milinkovic Savic is the prototype of the perfect future midfielder. Quality player, physically tough. Luis Alberto is someone who really struggles with these players. Bench him and start battling that apart. What was it? Around November. What's take on this, starting with Alistair?
No, I mean, I've been impressed with Basic's impact in the last couple of games. I mean, I said on Twitter last night, I thought that the midfield changes made a big impact in terms of, kind of rebalancing the game, because after Milan's equaliser, they were really on top, and it was essentially wave after wave of attack. Every time Lazio got the ball, they kind of attempted a counter-attack and failed, and they're just giving the ball back to Milan every time. But Cataldi's ability to actually take that ball under pressure and do something with it, find a teammate, that helped. Basic's physicality, his ability to actually have a presence in that midfield made a difference. I think it gives you a different option. I think there's been a little bit of talk after this game about what's the plan B, because obviously we don't see Sarri ever change the formation. But I think that in itself kind of is a plan B. The worrying thing about that, I guess, is that it does still feel like that hierarchy is almost untouchable. So your question about, is it the end for Alberto? Well, no, of course not. But I think they have to find a way of getting him into these games, because I think he does go quiet. If he starts quietly, he stays quiet, usually. And he's not playing kind of between the lines anymore. Under Inzaghi, first of all, as a trequartista, but then in the last season or so, he was kind of playing between the defence and the midfield, almost to to drop deep and get the ball in space. That's where you need him. You need him with time and space on the ball, and he'll do things for you. But when he's playing in that 3 and against very combative and technical midfields, I think he does struggle. But let's be honest, Vittorio, we're not in a position to be really dropping players like Luis Alberto. Do you think Basic has done enough, Vittorio, to be starting ahead of him from now on?
Honestly, I do. Honestly, I think that he had a better impact both against Torino and against Milan. Is that the problem? If he played well only against Torino, you would argue, okay, but with the top team, he struggled. Instead, even against Milan, Lazio started to play better in the second half with Basic in. Sarri said he's the future. So, that's another very important thing. One thing is that in these 2 matches, a midfield totally disappeared at a certain point because Leva was tired and he already had a yellow card, and Milinkovic-Savic was pretty much all alone. And we have to say that Kessie neutralized Milinkovic-Savic for a big chunk of this match. Now, I don't think all the tackles he made were clear. I thought the referee missed a couple of free kicks for Lazio, fouls on Kessie on Milinkovic-Savic. But if you play with 3 midfielders and you have only Milinkovic-Savic who's fighting, Leva was tired and Luis Alberto was invisible, then you really struggle. So that's why Basic coming in, he can help Milinkovic-Savic. Cataldi did well yesterday. So maybe we have to shuffle a little bit there in the midfield and obviously try to sign something better in the summer, which we're going to go and talk about later. Sean, what's your take about that?
Well, look, I think Luis Alberto is a perfect example of why we suffer with so many consistencies, because we have players like a Luis Alberto who, on his day, very similar to a Felipe Anderson, can be a world-class player, but then far too often in moments and in matches, those players disappear way too often than not. And so, it's no shocker when we have these ups and downs, when we have the types of players. And Luis Alberto, Alistair said it, like, he is a player that you have to play through, and he's got to have the right touches, and he's got to be the one orchestrating that attacking third. And when he's not, he just doesn't offer enough. And I think it's interesting because I would say, on one hand, I would say move towards Vasic. He's the future in that position, and he's a player that we expect to be on the roster next year and to be a big part of us moving forward. However, we also know that all the talk has been of an exit of either of Milinkovic-Savic or Luis Alberto. So, if we plan to recoup and sell Alberto for 30 million, well, we've got to play him. We've got to give him opportunities to showcase his value. Last thing we want to do is throw him out on the bench and have everybody forget about what he can do. So I think it's a tricky situation. I don't know that you just ignore Alberto and hope that somebody comes with the cash this summer. I think you still have to make sure he's a part of it. So interesting to see how Sarri and Tade play this one.
We mentioned that Sarri doesn't change too much the lineup. Yesterday, Radu started. We know Marusic weren't 100% fit, but the option should have been Hisa. Sarri opted for Radu. I tested Alistair before the match when I signed up. I thought that was a huge surprise, right? Seeing Radu starting, that Sarri doesn't trust anymore. And then, if this was in the last minutes of the match, I thought 2 substitution was a huge question mark for me. I can understand that maybe Patrick Ward, fatigue, and you put in Luis Felipe, Hisai, especially if Lazzari was playing that well. What do you think about Hisai going forward?
Well, probably more to do with the game Leao was having, and the fact that I think Lazzari did some good stuff going forward, but he did get absolutely roasted a couple of times down that wing by Rafael Leao. And to Lazzari's defense, I guess Leao's done that to a lot of players. But that he was the player who led to the goal. He was a player who's causing probably the most problems all night for that Lazio defense. So perhaps it was just an idea that's going to give us a little bit more defensive solidity. I think the Radu selection was surprising. I don't know. I mean, I feel like this defense is just a complete. What's the word? I mean, it's kind of like just picking names out of a hat, to be honest, at this stage. I mean, I said last night after the game, Marusic and Acerbi are supposed to be the two good ones. I mean, and they're the two players who have led to that complete disaster goal at the end. The entire thing needs to be rebuilt. I think that these kind of changes and unpredictable switches in an otherwise very, very steady and predictable lineup from Sarri, I think that just tells you a lot about the fact that it's just not good enough. And he's just having to roll the dice and kind of see what works, because he doesn't really seem to like any of it. And none of us do, I don't think. Even though,
that's the impression.
A lot better this, than it was at the start of the season. But even so, I think none of us are going to try and claim that it's made up of formidable individuals.
That's the impression I get. I mean, it seems like he's run out of options, and at this point, he's going deep into the cupboard to throw at Radu at this point, because what harm is that going to do? He knows what Isai brings at this point, and at this point there isn't anybody that's going to be a game changer, and we know the club was stricken with the flu, so at this point it's any able body. But I just it has been years of this issue really rotting the club from the inside, and it's you've gotta start fresh. I mean, it's got to be a complete overhaul. Otherwise, we're going to continue seeing this. And even when we brought in Acerbi and he had his couple seasons where he was great, and then he's slowly dropped to the level of everybody around him. And whether that's his age or whether that's just again not being around other players that play at a level necessary. It just needs to be rebuilt. It has to be a focus, because this defense is just always going to see these issues. And, it's frustrating because I know you guys have talked about this year over year, and it becomes a running joke at this point. But if this isn't the transfer window to do it, then we'll never do it.
I mean, we've been doing this almost 5 years, and I think we've been talking about the state of the defense continuously every year, probably. But I mean, anyway, I want to move us on a bit, because you mentioned the magic word, which is Acerbi, and I feel like this is something that people want us to discuss and debate, and that there's going to be some strong feelings here. So before we get into it, I'll just quickly explain what happened in case anyone missed it. After the Milan winner in the 93rd minute, the camera panned to Acerbi, and he was laughing. And then another video appeared of Adam Marusic screaming in his face, basically, after that had happened. And this has led to a hell of a lot of abuse from Lazio fans online. Acerbi's come out on Instagram and Twitter today and defended himself by saying he was basically laughing at how bad the situation was as his defense. Vittorio, where do you stand? Are you on the never pull on the shirt again side, or are you on the give the guy a break side?
Well, I think it's not only that. It's what happened in the last 6 months, what Acerbi has done in the last 6 months. We know, or at least everybody should be aware, that the Curva Nord is booing Acerbi since, when is it? January, December, after he silenced the Curva Nord after scoring a goal. Don't remember even against who. I was at the stadium and didn't know this, by the way. I saw it back to home at the TV. So he's doing a lot of things wrong. Now, I don't know why. I don't know what's happening. But this is just another mistake Acerbi is doing. Even my dog is upset with Acerbi, as you can hear. So, I don't believe, like a lot of Lazio fan wrote on social media from last night, that he did it on purpose. He's happy because he's a Milan fan, etc. That's absolutely no sense. I simply think he's not focused 100% in the team, and that smile is absolutely wrong. He shouldn't have do that. Cry, play, shout something, but don't laugh. That's the wrong message you're sending. Said this, I was thinking that first half he was playing really well. In the second half, he collapsed like all the team. I don't know if this is going to be his last match, even because we don't have that many options on the bench. Let's be honest. Are we going to play Radu Acerbi till the end of this? Radu Patrick till the end of the season? But I think this is the end of Acerbi with the Lazio shirt, in the sense that this summer he has to be sold because the relationship is broken. So I was disappointed. But again, this morning I saw the picture of Lotito smiling with a Salvini, a politician, Milan fan, after the end of the match. That's wrong too. So, a lot of bad sign after that match. Sean, what's your take about Acerbi situation?
Yeah, look, when I saw it live, I saw the smile and I immediately thought to myself, uh-oh, are Laziali going to have a field day? And it happened so quick on the television, and I immediately was concerned about the backlash. I take the stance that, one, I don't know any intent. I won't pretend to know or speculate why somebody reacted that way. I do know it is a pretty common reaction to, in the moment of absolute ridiculousness and despair. I know people that have laughed when Italy was scored, in the final minutes of the game against Northern Macedonia, and all you could do was laugh, at that situation. And so, I can't bring myself to think that, there was nothing but utter confusion, reaction, one that was not planned, intended, and maybe I'm wrong. Maybe, for him, it was a sign of giving up, but I don't believe that, so it's hard to read into the intent. It was a moment that, I'm curious to hear from Marusic in that moment where we saw his reaction. I'm curious as to what caused Marusic to get so angry, because when I saw that, my immediate reaction was who is Marusic to be yelling at anybody in that moment, as if he was not culpable for a part of that disaster. And so, I am curious as to what happened, because we as fans can speculate and we know nothing. Like we know nothing of how that or why he laughed. But who does know would be the players that obviously are at training every single day. Those are the ones that are in it with him. And so I would be curious to hear as to why Marusic was going nuts. There has to be something there. But look, I have, and maybe I'm a little bit biased when it comes to Acerbi with the connection that I have with him, but he is somebody that for me has shown that he cares. He cares about the fans. He cares enough. Has always been a warrior on the pitch. I mean, has always given his all. Obviously, we know his battles with cancer, and to come back and to play match in and match out. And so I do think, he's reacted in ways that, we don't love. Now, takes two. We know that our curva has not always made it easy. And so we forget that these players are humans that have emotions, that have reactions, that are going to respond in a way that's not always perfect. But I do think, regardless of all that, it is broken. The relationship is probably beyond repair. So you throw out the intent, you throw out why. What matters at this point is that there is a fracture beyond repair, I think, and for the benefit of the player and for the benefit of the club, you have to find a way to move on. from it. And I hate saying that, but I think that's probably what's best for all parties.
I feel like
I think Marusic shouted at him because he thought Acerbi was laughing at him at the mistake Marusic did. Probably that's where everything the discussion started. I would say something very easy. A football club tonight would have put a statement or a press interview with Acerbi and Marusic explaining what happened, saying blah blah blah, etc. But it's Lazio. This will never happen. We put our head under the sun and never happen. No problem at all. Which instead will create massive issue going forward. But yeah, I think simply Marusic know he made that mistake. So Acerbi laughing and said, "What you're laughing about me about my mistake? So I'm really upset about you." But again, a big club would put the two. I'm surprised that yesterday they didn't speak after the match. I was hoping that Acerbi would have come, maybe a Lazio Style channel. You know, you're at home to your official radio and TV and explain what happened. You know, I think they already resolved the issue. This is the problem with our media department in Lazio, right, Alistair?
Our what? Yes. Don't send me down that road because there's no way back. But yeah, I mean, I think that it was a perfect storm, really, in like ways of angering the Lazio fan base. I say that not only because it's Acerbi, but because that kind of reaction, I think, triggers anger in Lazio fans because there's a general suspicion that there's this kind of complacent, lazy attitude around the entire team. And that comes from their performances on the pitch. I think that comes from just the general lack of kind of leadership and backbone we've seen from this team over the years. And so when you see your team conceding a goal in stoppage time and the first thing that comes up on the TV screen is one of them laughing, I think that triggers a lot of emotions that actually go way beyond how fans feel about Acerbi. Obviously, the way I look at it, Acerbi, you got to think about these things. You know, I get that can be a negative emotion, laughter. I mean, people say there's an expression, you know, if you don't laugh, you cry, because those two kind of reactions are very close, and I get that. But when you've already got this very frayed reaction with the fan base, when you've already got these problems going on in the background, then it's not really that time. I don't know how much under control he is of that reaction or not. That's another discussion. But I agree with you guys that I feel like it's the end for him, not because he's going to be hounded out of the club by angry fans who won't forgive him for laughing, but just because it feels like it's symbolic of a greater kind of disintegration that's happened between him and Lazio over the course of the season. But yeah, like you say, Vittorio, it's also a larger problem because there isn't enough of a squad here. There isn't a serious enough squad that you can afford for one of your players like Acerbi to essentially tap out. You know, you've got him essentially on the way out. You've got Luis Felipe already heading out at the end of his contract. Patrick at the moment still is heading out at the end of his contract. I mean, it's what can we say about the season now? It feels like all the air has gone out of the balloon and there's nothing left really apart from cheering on Ciro to win the Capocannoniere, and that's about it.
And this is the issue, guys, because as Alistair was mentioning, Patrick looks he could, but it's not done. Luis Felipe is gone. I think Acerbi is gone. So you already have two starting central. Alistair, Reina didn't his contract. We need a starting goalkeeper, two starting central defender. What's going to happen? He's not starting, so probably you need even a left back. So you need two starting central defender, a starting goalkeeper, a left back. I want to remind everybody that Iglitaris don't see this happening this summer, right? So that's going back to, I don't know who asked us about the future. GM. he's worried about. I think every Lazio fan is, because this is a revolution. But don't think nobody expecting Tare to do it, right? Nobody expecting Tare to sign two good central defender, a good goalkeeper. Leva is leaving the club. Even a playmaker, there's Leva. Maybe Luis Alberto is leaving. We need another player there. Let's not forget, it's 5 years we don't have a Vice Ciro Immobile. Ciro's not getting old. We need a Vice Immobile. So we already need to sign 7 good players. Well, we usually say out of these 4, 1 is good. This, I think, is the most concerning part of everything going so far, right? Should you agree with me, or you're more optimistic?
No, I agree with you on this one. Unfortunately, it's hard to be optimistic given our track record. I think the other disappointing thing is we know that we tend to wait to even think about the transfer window. It hits us like it's some event that was just made up. Instead of thinking and planning and starting the negotiation process early, we often wait until the day the window opens. I think what's frustrating is we hear all the Romagnoli rumors and that conversations are being had. And this is a perfect example of how we can be so frustrated in a moment and an opportunity where we are actually ahead of the game, having conversations early. We see how wide the gap is between what we're willing to offer and what the player wants. And so even when we do start conversations early, we put ourselves in quite a bind where we're turning players off. And I can't see that happening. You've got a player that wants to come to Lazio, which is a challenge in and of itself. And then when he does want to come, we're so unwilling to meet them anywhere near where they want to be paid. And so, it's going to be a tough one. And this is why we see Sarri holding off on any sort of negotiations and willing to sign, because, he's quick to see, how this club operates, which can be so frustrating. So it's such a massive transfer window to us. You would think and hope that this isn't just about giving a manager what he wants, but I think about the players. I think about Ciro Immobile and Milinkovic-Savic. If Savic is going to stay with the club, he's in his prime years right now. You've got to capitalize on it. You said it, Ciro Immobile is not getting any younger, but everything that he has given to this club, we owe it to him to be a competitive team. And so, if you're not going to provide for these players and provide some talent around them, then you might as well ship them off somewhere else and not put them through these types of seasons. So, I'll be interested to see how we approach this offseason.
Alistair?
Yeah, no, I'm terrified about it. I think it's going to be a complete disaster. It's not just the kind of scale of the rebuilding, but also the rejuvenation. By which I mean Lazio are the oldest team, I believe, in Serie A for average age, and a lot of the star players who have allowed us to achieve great things in the last few years, like getting to the Champions League, like winning Coppa Italia, are now past their peak. So how do our Primavera teams in Serie B? So we're not even relying on our incredible youth system to be providing us with loads of amazing talents who are ready to break through in Serie A. We've obviously got Moro and Romero, who are about our only 2 useful young players. But it's not just the fact that we need to sign all these players, but they all need to be quite young, really. And that costs a lot of money. So there's just, an unbelievable amount of work to be done. And like you alluded to, Vittorio, I have lost faith by this point that Iglitare is capable of doing such a big job. I very much hope I'm wrong, though.
To wrap it up, seeing that the spot is quite hard to achieve, rather try for the league or is it without Euro competition? Because you mentioned that has a week to prepare the match, he does it better, the team is more focused, etc. But you're going to lose the money of a European competition. This league is a quite achievable competition. So I'm asking, it's to qualify Conference League or not at all this season? Sean?
Well, it's funny because I've said this, and I know Alistair agrees, but it's silly to fight really hard for Europa every single year, only to not focus on it and care about it. So that's how I stand when it comes to Europa. However, Conference League, a very different tournament, a new tournament, certainly one that doesn't come with the and I'll say prestige lightly, but Europa is an important tournament. Given Conference League, I don't care about that one at all. Honestly, I think knowing who we are, knowing that it's going to be really tough to put together a team that's deep, I would rather not play in that sham of a tournament. And maybe that's my bitterness coming out, but I really don't care about that one at all. So I'm fine with avoiding playing in that.
I would love to be in the Conference League. I'm slightly biased here because I've got a secondary motive, which is that there's actually a very slim, but a chance is still a chance, that my team from Scotland, Ross County, will qualify for the Conference League.
Wow.
And the idea of Lazio and County ending up in the same Conference League tie is too much. So I'm all on board. No, I think generally the Conference League, I think this season has been better than people expected it to be. We're a group of Laziali here, and obviously Roma have been doing well in this tournament, so maybe that's going to affect how people feel about it. But I think the group stage is obviously pretty weak, but once Europa teams drop in and so on, it's been quite an interesting competition. I think European competition in general is always great to be involved in when you can. Yes, the money's not as great as it could be, but I still would prefer Lazio in Europe than out of Europe. And yeah, I mean, if you're in Europe as well, it's another way that Sarri can push the owners and push Tari and say, look, we have to play 3 games a week. We couldn't do that last season with this squad. We need to sign more players. That's my slight doubt with, the idea of, we finish in 8th and we miss out on Europe so we can focus on the league. Well, what if that then forces the club to be more complacent in the transfer market and say, well, you can afford a smaller squad then? So I think for me, I think if the opportunity is there to play in Europe, I always want to take it.
Before we wrap it up, to answer hard those. Well, the money that of Salernitana is of Lotito, not of Lazio. So it's going back to Lazio, it's going back to Lotito. So we cannot use that money. And thanks for your comment. Where is it? Probably you see that Alistair is there with us. So our level is going down a little bit. But, there's still me and Sean that keep it up. Thank you, Sean, for joining us. It's always a pleasure to have. So you're very welcome when you want. Thank you to joining me as usually. I mean, you didn't have nothing to do. There's Juventus playing. You don't have to cover that match tonight.
No, I like how you tried to organize it on a match night in the hope that I wouldn't be here, but sadly I am.
Well, I think you just find a goal. Juventus Sassuolo. Anyway, guys, thanks for joining us. Remember, you can follow Spotify, YouTube, and Twitch, wherever you listen to your podcast. Rate and subscribe if you want to support patreon.com/Lazio Lounge memberships this month. And we're going to be back Monday. Hopefully better performance of Lazio.